This is Ethan. Ethan has autism and struggles to switch to new tasks at school. His teacher, Miss Davis, is confused because her previous student, Carly, who was also on the spectrum, had no problem switching to new tasks throughout the day. Ethan has an executive function impairment, but Carly doesn't. Executive functions can be thought of as the air traffic control system of the brain. They guide and regulate other cognitive systems so that we can achieve our behavioral goals. Executive function impairments are widely cited in autism, but the problem is there isn't a lot of agreement. First, everybody on the autism spectrum is different. Not everybody on the spectrum has executive function impairments. Second, you can have an impairment in one component of executive function, like task switching, but be strong in another component such as working memory. Finally, while some research cites an over-reliance of the prefrontal cortex when completing executive function tasks, others suggest that there is not enough activation in this region. Because of this, it's really hard for practitioners like Ms. Davis to summarize what we know so far and make sense of it. I conducted an activation likelihood analysis of 18 fMRI studies. The methods detailed by the PRISMA guidelines were followed. Papers were excluded for lack of whole brain coordinates, no official autism diagnosis, and comorbid autism samples. This resulted in a meta-analysis of 900 participants, 408 with autism and 492 typically developing, ranging in age from 7 to 52. Peak activation coordinates were extracted into text files and converted to MNI coordinates. The text files were used to run separate ALE analyses for the typically developing and autism groups using the ginger ale software. This type of analysis allowed me to make conclusions of all of the knowledge that we have so far and make sense of it. At first glance, the prefrontal cortex activation in both groups looked relatively similar. However, in the autism group, this activation didn't extend past the prefrontal cortex into other relevant executive regions like the parietal network. This meant that there might be a connectivity problem that's preventing that spread of activation that needs to happen. The autism group's activation pattern seems to differ primarily in the left and right intraparietal lobule. The autism group did not recruit this region during executive function tasks. Second, in the autism group, the prefrontal cortex activation happened at distinctly different coordinates. Finally, the autism group had a different developmental trajectory. In the typically developing group, activation is primarily in the occipital lobe and then extended to the prefrontal cortex and other executive regions after the age of 16. In the autism group, there was no significant activation until the age of 16, at which point it was restricted to the prefrontal cortex. This research gives us a picture of what executive function looks like in the autistic brain. We can then use this picture to create diagnostic methods and interventions to better equip teachers and practitioners to support individuals on the spectrum, like Ethan.